Let's welcome in our first guest. He is the chairman of Judiciary in the House of Delegates, Mr. J.B. Akers. But more importantly, he is the husband of Judge Mary Claire Akers, who is a great person. And from what I hear in Charleston, she's got the nickname the Hanging Judge. Welcome, JG.
How's it going, fellas? I'm better known as Mary Claire's husband, that's for sure. So that's an accurate description of me.
JB, you obviously you're chairman of a major committee. What are you working on in the off season? What is your committee, or what are you focused on?
Well, Mike, I think you and I have a focus that's pretty similar. And let me say this out of the gate: Mike Hornby is a great delegate. I'm not saying that just because I'm on his show this morning. Mike focuses most of his time and attention on economic development issues. That's what I try to spend most of my time on as well. And I think Mike and I have the same view on this. Obviously, there's lots of important things we've got to work on. I mean, we all know foster care is a big deal in the state. We've got to try to work on substance abuse issues. We've got to fix our roads. We've got to provide good education. But I think Mike and I both look at this as a top-down approach where, the way you get those things done, the way you solve those other challenges is you have to have jobs. You've got to increase your economic base. You've got to increase your tax base in the state. And so we look at this primarily as, what we like to do is try and get as many folks in here, provide as many good paying jobs as possible, keep as many West Virginians here as possible, and get as many new people moved to the state as possible. And that's how you provide the resources to solve these other challenges that we have. So in the off season, I've been spending as much time as I can on economic development. So that's what I'm doing right now, Mike.
You just recently did a economic development trip. You were at the Paris Air Show. Can you explain what you did there, what the purpose of us as legislators being there?
Yeah, so the Paris Air Show, that was a pretty amazing opportunity, and we had 4 legislators go. We had a staffer go with us, and then we had 4 people from the private sector, one actually from the academic side. We had someone from Marshall University, Tony Stroud, who's one of their vice presidents down there, because Marshall's got a pretty impressive flight school. And then we had some folks who were tied in with some airport authorities in different parts of the state as well, went with us. And this is something that is just becoming increasingly necessary. We sent a small delegation there, and we had a working group in place for 3 full days at the air show. But there were 21 other states, including every state surrounding us, except for Kentucky. Kentucky had a contingent there as well, like us, but 21 other states, and all the states around us but one had full booths, displays there. When I say booth, it's like a large area that they had leased out, and what I'll describe these as hangars that surround the airfield that we were at, and they had, I don't know, Mike, hundreds, thousands of vendors there, mostly showing off things that were the manufacturers of things in the aerospace industry, but there were 21 other states that had full contingents of staff there, full displays and booths they were marketing their states, and they were bringing people in. So, it's just a very competitive space. And one reason why is because if you can land some of these companies, it's a very high reward market as well, because, the aerospace manufacturing industry requires a lot of economic investment. And if you can get someone to bring those types of jobs to your state, those are going to be, good paying long-term jobs. And, but it's not just that. It's not just we're trying to bring new companies to West Virginia. A lot of folks may not know this, but the aerospace industry is actually one of our fastest growing market segments in the state of West Virginia. A lot of that's happening around the Ohio River Valley of West Virginia, and we're about to see, I think, an exponential growth in that space as well, because we have Nucor Steel, which is building its largest steel manufacturing facility anywhere in the world in West Virginia, and Comet, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company, is building a world-class titanium manufacturing facility in that same area. And both of those facilities will be natural suppliers for the aerospace industry. So we also want to help the companies that have already invested in West Virginia. So So we're trying to draw in people in the supply chain who are going to buy their steel and buy their titanium. We have Constellium in West Virginia as well, who manufactures aerospace-grade aluminum. So we're also trying to make sure that we help the companies who are here. So that was, in a nutshell, that was the purpose of the trip. And we made some good contacts. We've got to keep working hard to get some folks to, follow up. But that was what that trip was about.
Bill Stubblefield.
Yeah, good morning, JB. Thanks for joining us this morning. I have two questions. The first one's going to be admittedly a very softball question. Let me ask that one first. Looking at your bills that you've offered, one is 3271. That's authorizing digital court records. Why are we so late in doing that? I would have thought all of the digital court records should have been done years ago.
I don't disagree with you, but that's a resource-based initiative. That was something that the Supreme Court asked us to run, so I was happy to sponsor that one. And from my point of view, I think the court system should be as open and transparent as possible. I think the public should have open access to court records online. I don't think in this day and age people should have to, run down to the courthouse or across the state. I mean, sometimes you need records from a different county. I mean, you guys are 5 hours from me. I mean, there are times I need records from Berkeley County or Jefferson County. So I think people should be able to sit down at their computer or on their phone and get records from wherever they need it in the state. So, but it costs money. And I'll tell you, like, the systems are expensive to digitize the records. The systems can be expensive to maintain. And you've got to make sure that they communicate well with each other also. I mean, so it's got to be something that works across the whole state. I mean, you can't have a different system in each county. So that takes money. And, I mean, we all know this. It's a reality. The counties don't have the resources in a lot of places that they need. So, I mean, you guys are seeing economic development up where you are. That's great. McDowell County, West Virginia, we all know this. They've been devastated economically recently, so, they don't have the resources necessarily to do this as quickly as maybe you all do. So, but I agree it's beyond time, Bill, but it takes money.
We actually in Berkeley County did it about 15 years or so ago. So, but I agree with you. We need as much transparency as possibly can. So I applaud that. So I was using that to single out something I really think is necessary. Let me ask another question. You mentioned economic development, and this is a question more for from the Senate side than the House side. This past year, there seemed to be an emphasis on cultural issues as opposed to Chamber of Commerce economic issues. As you try to promote the economic well-being of our state, are some of these cultural issues getting in the way at all?
I mean, they definitely draw a lot of immediate attention, and I'll say this, and I'm not someone who goes around targeting the media or like using the phrase fake news, but I will be critical of the media at times. I mean, we all deserve criticism and praise in different ways, and the media absolutely will run disproportionately the clickbait stories. And the cultural issues get a lot of airtime, and they do exist. I mean, I'm not saying that legislation's not out there. I'm not saying some delegates or senators don't spend a lot of time on those. But, things like the economic development issues do not get as much time in the media. They don't get as many clicks. So I will say it's not that, Bill, it's not that it's not out there, but I think it gets a disproportionate amount of attention. But I will say this, too, to answer your question a little further. You're probably wondering if those issues sometimes can hamper economic development, if people from the outside looking in. And I'm not going to claim that there might not be a company every now and then who might not look at that and be turned off by it. But at the same time, Bill, the states that have had the most economic growth over the last census period and the most population growth over the last census period, and I'm not being political when I say this, it's just a fact, those have been red states. If you look at the census data that's most recent, it's Texas, it's Florida. Down the line, you look at the top 10, I think, if I remember correctly, only 2, maybe 3 of the states that had the most growth over the last census period, both economically and population-wise, were blue states. So ultimately, what I can say is what companies look to is the economic policies of the state, They look at the bureaucracy, the state government. Is it going to get in their way? And I think there's other things that are important too. Your labor and workforce issues are important, but by and large, what companies are looking to is, what's the economic climate of your state? How easy is it to do business there? How much do they think you appreciate them and what they do, and do you want them there? Do you send a signal that you want those businesses there? So I guess, Bill, I won't say that those cultural issues never come up or they never matter at all. We talk about economic discussions, but those are secondary. So, I mean, primarily these companies want to know that you have an economic climate in place that's going to make it easier for them to do business and be profitable.
Thank you. John Gilstrap.
Morning, JB. This is John Gilstrap. When you're pitching West Virginia to these companies, especially when you're overseas, are you pitching the entire state, or there's a lot of economic inequality here in West Virginia? Eastern Panhandle is thriving, other parts of the state are not. Are you making a conscious effort to find something to bolster the economy in the less fortunate counties?
Well, what we do, or what I do personally, I can't speak for everybody, but what I do is I pitch whatever's best for that individual company. And if that means we can try to emphasize a part of the state that needs more help, then yeah, we'll do that. But as an example, if it's a company that's going to be in the supply chain for Constellium or TimeMet or Nucor, it's probably better for them to be located closer to one of those companies. So while that part of the state is seeing an economic resurgence right now, it's not that you're trying to pile on and put everything there in that one place, but some companies are going to want to be closer to whoever it is they're buying their product from, for example. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, we definitely, like for data centers, for example, that's something else that we're trying to hammer as much as possible. It's got a lot of press lately. I've been involved in some of those discussions, and with some of those companies, we're like, hey, maybe some of these counties in southern West Virginia that they're seeing, just consistent retraction in their economies. A data center might be a perfect thing for those locations or for those counties because, the areas might be a little more isolated. You're not worried about, quote unquote, noise pollution that some people say they're worried about with a data center. We have, land down there that's usable, that's not going to be used for anything else. Maybe it's an old strip mine site, for example, where there's no other development that's on the near horizon. So, yeah, for those types of things, we might say, I mean, obviously the Eastern Panhandle, you have a lot of data centers surrounding you guys in Northern Virginia, and maybe people will think that's a natural fit for a data center as well, and it can be if you all want one there and we can find the right person. But otherwise, if they're saying, hey, we'll take any spot that's available, then like southern West Virginia might be a place that we emphasize more just to try to get some development down there.
When you encounter skepticism or resistance about building in West Virginia, what's the focus? What's the point that they're most concerned about?
Well, I mean, a lot of times it's site selection. It's like, do we have the land that they need, especially if it's a large-scale project? I mean, our topography is one of our most consistent challenges. So that's one thing. Some people, at least if we're getting some constructive criticism, I hear our labor and our workforce come up sometimes. But my answer to that always is, if you have a good paying job, if you have just a good job in general, my experience is the labor will follow the job. And in other words, so I'll go back to Nucor. It's going to be Nucor's largest facility anywhere in the world. There's not a workforce already in place. There wasn't a large steel manufacturing facility where Nucor is currently building on their site. Those workers didn't exist before Nucor started building there. They've got to import those workers. Now, some are going to be local. We have a workforce there that's available who can come do that work, but a lot of folks are going to have to move in from outside the area, which, of course, then you have things like, I mean, we have a housing shortage there, so we have to build houses, which is a good problem to have. And also use another long-term success story down closer to my area is the Toyota plant in Buffalo, West Virginia, over in Putnam County. I mean, guys, I was a college-age student when that plant started getting constructed. My dad actually worked on it. He's was an electrician before he retired. There was nothing in Buffalo. You had some houses and you had a school. I mean, that was really just about it. And now you've got a world-class workforce there. That Buffalo plant is one of Toyota's best plants in the world. As a matter of fact, it's been their best plant in the world several times by Toyota's internal rankings. And so that workforce had to be imported for the most part. And it's because people are like, this is the kind of job I can have for my entire life. So I don't worry that much about that issue. I think we can solve that one. I think people are going to move here, and I think the state of West Virginia has a lot to offer people who want to move here and work.
JB, in your discussions, I'm sure broadband comes up. How are you able to talk around the lack of broadband in a lot of the state?
Well, we certainly tell people if it's an emphasis that we have in the state, and that's not something we just say. And when you look at the most recent award of broadband funding that we got from the federal government, which, we were all hoping that we would have that money by now, but we're having to go through a second round of applications. But West Virginia was, I believe, the very first state in the country to be awarded those federal broadband grants. And so, that's not just us saying that for a fact. We absolutely emphasize broadband in West Virginia now. And again, Bill, I'll say probably we should have emphasized it sooner, but we're not late to the party at this point. We have done our due diligence. We've got a plan in place. And if and when that broadband money does eventually get released to the states, then we have a plan to hit the ground running. And and we have good broadband access in parts of the state. It does need to be expanded, not just for companies, but for people who live here. It's important for education, healthcare, and everything else. But we can point to our track record recently and say, look, we have mapped out a plan for success when it comes to broadband, and we can sell that as well.
JB, thank you. As you had the discussion, I went through the same discussion bringing maces into Eastern Panhandle, and there was a tremendous amount of competition from other states. As you sit down around the table, what is your number one pitch, and what is your anticipated number one weakness? Well,
the number one weakness I'll start there first, and I don't like to say that we have any weaknesses, but I guess to some extent it's just making ourselves known and putting ourselves into discussion first and foremost, and we've got to be extremely aggressive about that, and that's my personality. I am not a guy who likes to step back and wait for things to happen. I like to be part of making them happen. And I think you just have to make yourself known. I think, we have done that in the recent past. We're doing a great job of that. I think in the more distant past, we weren't part of the discussions. That was a weakness. That's changing. I think our greatest strength, at least on the government side, when I'm involved in this, I've got a private job. I've got a law firm down here in Charleston. But on the government side, our greatest strength is that you can talk to anyone you need to talk to. If you're a company or small business, large corporation, doesn't matter, anything in between, you have access to anyone that you need to talk to in the state of West Virginia on the government side. That's a fact. I've seen that happen. We have people who, if they want to come in to the state of West Virginia, if they want to drive here or fly here, you can meet with House leadership. You can meet with the Speaker of the House. You can meet with the Senate President. You can meet with people in the governor's office face to face. And I've heard this from companies, and I'll say this, that folks from Berkshire Hathaway told me it's okay to talk about this when I met with them at their TimeF facility. There's some states like California where they can't get a meeting with people, even at like a moderate level of government. It's almost like the government doesn't care. And maybe California, even though they're seeing a decline in their population and they need to figure out why, they almost don't seem to care, maybe because they have like they've been blessed with, economic success for so long, at least in terms of the number of companies that are there, even though I think you're starting to see a retraction, that they just kind of take it for granted. In West Virginia, we do not. We value those relationships. We really work hard to prove that we want you here. And it starts primarily from caring about the people who live in this state and wanting to see them succeed. And so we take that upon ourselves to say, look, the people who live here are important to us. We know how much good jobs mean to them. We are sick and tired of seeing them having to move out of state to seek those opportunities elsewhere. We want you in West Virginia to improve the climate of this place so that our people can stay and so that we'll bring new people here. And we send that message, and we will sit down with people at a moment's notice, and we'll say, what can we do to make things work for you? We find ways to say yes. And that's the message we send.
I couldn't agree with you more, JB. I think that is the perfect answer. I am going to put you on the spot a little bit. We've only got 2 minutes left. So Why do you hate relish, and why is this such a huge part of your campaign that you want to ban relish in West Virginia and you don't think it belongs on hot dogs?
You know, Mike, I started this interview out by saying good things about you, and then you've got to bring up a sore spot for me about something that's been a point of contention between me and my wife for a long time. Your listeners may not care, but when it comes to hot dogs, buddy, I'm a West Virginia dog, hardcore advocate. That means chili, slaw, mustard, and onions. For some reason, my wife likes relish in a hot dog. I can't disagree with her more. I love everything about her, probably except for that. And so I don't know what the thought is up in that part of the state, but down here in the place where I live, buddy, you better keep the relish off the hot dog.
John, what about you?
More important than that, do you put salt on watermelon?
Yes, 100%.
All right.
Bill, relish on your hot dog?
My wife loves hot dogs. That's all I get, so I don't want hot dogs anymore.
JB, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Awesome talking to you guys. Mike, I hope you put up a good picture of me online, buddy.
We did. Perfect hair as usual, buddy.
All right, you guys have a great day. Have a great week.
Thanks, JB.